I saw this great video from Wavy Wayne at NAMM asking everybody to define what is gain staging. It's so hilarious because everyone explains it so differently. So let's talk about what people are saying and ultimately just show you what's important, what you actually need to pay attention to in your mix.
It's about making sure that everything is coming in at a healthy volume.
Everything is leveled out and you don't have any peak or anything is like, clipping.
Okay, so Google says gain staging is the process of managing audio signal levels at each stage of the recording and mixing chain to achieve optimal signal to noise ratio without unwanted distortion. By controlling input-output levels, it ensures signals are loud enough to stay above the noise floor, obviously, but low enough to avoid clipping. When I saw this and when I did some research, it hit me that maybe after 12 years of mixing, I was actually not taught this correctly. When I was signed to Sony and in the studio with many awesome producers, I was told a much more simplified version of what gain staging is, which actually sounds like I was taught wrong. Regardless, it gave me an important understanding of mixing that made more sense to me than clearly what all the confusion on the internet seems to reveal. So in this video, let's throw out the confusing definitions and just look at this in practice in relation to home studio recording. This is the simplified breakdown, assuming you have a simpler setup with just your mic, your interface, and your DAW, okay? We're going to forget about the additional preamps and outboard gear that not many people even have. So let's just redefine gain staging a little more loosely to mean keeping a consistent gain level throughout the song. Have you ever noticed in mainstream music that soft vocals in the verse are actually mixed to be the same volume as the powerful belted vocals in the chorus? Pop music loves to murder dynamics, but that's what we're used to at this point, so let's go with it. That is why we lean on vocal arrangement, shifts and effects like reverb amount on the chorus to give the audience the illusion of dynamics without changing the volume of the vocal. Anyway, how to do gain staging in practice? Well, the recording and mixing process happens in stages. So starting with the recording process, I don't know about you, but I tend to write my verses in a lighter tone than my choruses. So I may be singing more in my low, mid-range, chill voice, ramp up in the pre-chorus, and then be more powerful in the chorus, right? In reality, this is dynamic singing. In modern mixing, we have to consider how we want the song to sound in the end. On the record, it sounds weird if the verse is too quiet, right? So first step to staging this is to think about the levels you'll be performing at when choosing your gain level, which is the most important part of this process. And I have to admit, I am so lazy with this part. Often, I'll just sing the loudest part of the song and set my gain level based on that and fix everything in post. Not always the best decision. Ideally, if you have a very dynamic song, you should set your gain level twice. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, this is when you sing into your mic and watch that green meter on your record track while turning the input knob on your interface to set your level. Shoot for full green, not going into the yellow. Anything above that is the danger zone for potential clipping or distortion, which you can't fix in post. So don't let your vocals distort, but back to our gain staging. Ideally, you'll record the verses and any parts of the song that are in that quieter level first. This is also good for warming up your voice and not killing your voice on big belted choruses first and then having no energy for your verses. So set a good level for the quieter parts of your song, record and comp all of that, and then set a new level for when you get to the powerful parts of the song. Good mixing technique is to always set the next stage up for success, so better recording levels from the beginning will make this next part easier, which I call gaining up or gaining down the clips to level out the vocals. Some people call this volume riding, but technically gaining and volume are not the same thing. Just having these two stages dialed will help your compressor plugins perform better as well. So hopefully if you've recorded with good levels, you don't need to do too much work here. So we're just gonna scan through the waveform and look for parts where the gain looks suddenly way louder or way quieter from the other parts around it. In Pro Tools, we have this handy little gain fader. So depending on what DAW you're in, this might just be like gain rendering in place, which also we have in Pro Tools this Audio Suite plugin, which is like a render in place processing plugin to just increase or decrease the gain. So that's what we're doing if you're in another DAW. I love using the gain faders because you don't really want to automate any major volume changes with the volume faders themselves, unless it's like an entire section that you're changing. I don't really like automating the volume up and down. Love using the gain fader for this. So we need to have a look and a listen because sometimes the eyes can be deceiving on this and it can sound super weird if you're only doing this by eyesight. So let's listen down to this section and I'll just start doing a little gaining up and down. Keep on talking that noise. Oh. I think my compressors are doing a really good job, so even though it looks all over the place, the compressor is working and keeping it very level. But did you notice how this part like kind of doesn't look that low level, but for some reason it sounded way quieter than the line right next to it. Let's keep going. I'll keep raising my voice. Oh, I'll keep raising my voice. My voice, oh, keep raising my voice, oh. And as I'm changing these levels, you won't see me go more than like negative 3.8 dB. You really shouldn't be making super large changes, or that will start to create these weird pumpy, like massive volume changes. We do have compressors for a reason. I like an upward compressor personally. I think my gain levels are always pretty much set to not distort, so I don't really need it turning me down, but I often need it turning me up. So I use an upward compressor or a vocal rider type plugin. Okay, yeah, so from here, how our gain level is affected is gonna go to the plugins next, and pretty much that's gonna be everything in the compression family. Saturation plugins tend to boost your levels a lot, high-end exciters, any OTT effects. But when you've got your plugins on, just be aware of the overall levels of your meters, making sure we don't have anything going into the red. And this isn't mastered yet, so it's a very modest level for sure, but part of our gain staging is with the mastering, we're gonna boost that. What do we have here? It looks like I've turned all my mastering plugins off and I'm just using Master Plan by Music Hack. So if I were to really boost this loudness, I'm gonna be watching this like a hawk. Act like you don't hear me, but I stay in your mind clearly. One more time, you gon' play it again and again and again and again. This is telling me that my mixing was pretty conservative. I mean, look at how low I've turned these beats down, and then I don't have crazy limiting going on my vocal chain. So we're really able to push this mastering plugin pretty loud. Actually, don't think I ever push it that loud. I usually have this turned way up here, and I probably have some limiting on my vocals, making my vocals quite louder as well. So it's probably gonna be more like this when I boosted that instrumental. Again, I'm watching the green meter, but I'm also watching my left's meter. Spotify standard radio wants you to be around -14. No one pays attention to that these days. I keep it around -10 to -8. That's pretty loud, but you don't want your song playing next to another song and that song was louder than yours. So it is what it is these days. Feel free to really push your limiting on your vocals just as long as it's not starting to sound squashed, unless you're doing a certain retro EDM style where that was kind of popular. But this is 2026 and we kind of want natural sounding vocals coming through. I mean, yeah, I used to have like 5 plugins on my mastering chain. Now I really only have this because half the time I get an instrumental, it's already mastered. So I've been basically almost mastering on my vocal chain, which is in practice probably horrible. Mixing engineers would probably cringe at me, but I'm sure they see this all the time. And so we end up not really needing to push our mastering because the beat is already mastered and it's too loud, and then the vocal is being pushed to death. So that's really all I worry about with gain staging. It's pretty much just your vocal levels, you're gaining up and down, and then keeping an eye on your compression plugins and your mastering to make sure nothing is being pushed to distortion and nothing is just too quiet. If you want to try out any of these Kimera audio plugins, you can get a free trial. Just follow the link in the description below. Make sure you're subscribed, and if you want any more vocal production videos, I think you'll like this playlist next. So I'll see you over there.